Questions? I think we're going to get started in about 2 minutes if people could take their
And then
seats.
I think Chase Bank is already in. So, yeah. But we are running out of line.
We have a supply of lots for probably 2 more.
Are we gonna put clicker to advance?
Yeah, I've got the clicker, so I'll pass it down around.
Thank
to
you.
get started.
Thank you.
We might go in reverse alphabetical order.
Hello.
Right in the center.
Or Bill.
That would name and ask if you could go first.
Oh, even better. City of King.
And
Where's
you
your
can
vector
walk right
property?
in alphabetical order.
Oh, our cities in our industrial area. We really like to sell it. When industrial user, we need more taxable land.
We think our data center is falling through. We're on Oak Street, which will not kill my spirits by any means. Lee, how are you? Good.
You're like, whoa, I was Hi, I think you're either, yes, yeah, usually you're on the opposite side.
I know, right?
Congratulations on that. How long have you been with North Plains?
Okay,
Oh, wow.
looks like people are migrating over here. So I heard the mic doesn't work on the other side. So if you're over there, you might want to move a little bit closer to this side. We'll go ahead and get started. So good morning and welcome to the Washington County Development Forum. My name is Erin Wardell. I'm the Planning and Development Services Division Manager here at the county. I want to introduce a couple of the other division managers from the county we have in the room. So we have Stacy Shetler, our county engineer. Stacy is in charge of our engineering, traffic, and survey team. And then Russ Knobles, our division manager for capital projects. He's walking towards his seat now. Our director, Stephen Roberts, has jury duty this morning, so he sends his apologies. He couldn't be here. If he's released, he will come by for some coffee and scones, maybe towards the end. So we'll see how his schedule goes. Thank you all for joining us today. So if you haven't been to a development forum before, I'm going to talk a little bit about the goals and why we do this. We do this twice a year. The purpose of this is really for you to have an opportunity to get to know staff, bring up any concerns you have, ask questions, find out about updates and process changes, regulatory changes. And then we want to hear from our customers as well as to how we can better serve you and support your goals. We really want to be here to build productive relationships. And every once in a while, we do a development forum that is a roundtable where we invite our partners to come and join us. And so I'm really excited about today to have our city partners and Clean Water Services here as well, so you can work on building those relationships with them. Clicker is not advancing. Can we go to the next slide, Mark? Thanks. So we have some principles, ground rules that we use for running the development forum. I'm just going to summarize all of this by saying, let's assume positive intent and let's assume everyone's here to share information and build good relationships. And so I'm not going to read all the words, but we want to be here to be inclusive and get to know all of you. There we go. So our agenda for today, we are going to go through basically roundtable updates. I'm going to start with Washington County, and then I think we'll go in this order, starting with Damon from Clean Water Services, and then reverse alphabetical order for the cities. And then we'll have an opportunity for a little Q&A, and then probably just having some more snacks and networking. Please help yourself to snacks and coffee, by the way, if you haven't already. So with that, I'm going to jump into the county updates, and everyone has 5 minutes to do their individual jurisdiction updates. With only 5 minutes and wanting to save time for you to hear from all of these folks as well, I'm going to cover 2 regulatory updates that we have happening here at the county that you may be interested in. So the first of those is, you've probably heard about the Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities rulemaking that happened at the state level. These rules require many local governments in Oregon to update their plan and regulatory documents in the interest of advancing our climate-friendly policies and regulations. And so this is not unique to Washington County. Our other City partners are going through similar updates right now if they're within the metro area as well. So you may hear about some of this from them as well. There's a number of different rules to comply with, and we need to comply at different times. The first of those rules that we need to comply with have to do with regulating parking. So the first thing that you will see is changes to our community development code and our parking regulations. So we will be proposing changes this year, and that will remove the minimum parking requirements within the urban area. We will have some new parking lot, surface parking lot design standards implemented. We will be expanding the maximum parking regulatory requirements as well. So this is a pretty time-intensive, labor-intensive ordinance. There's a lot of references to parking in our community development code. If you've had a chance to flip through that thing, we will be filing the ordinance in early summer and then going through our planning commission and board hearings after that. Our project manager for this is CJ Doxey, who's here raising his hand. So you have questions about that work, please follow up with CJ. We need to meet a state deadline of having these regulations adopted by the end of 2024. And then the other big regulatory update we have going on is our significant natural resources regulations. If you were here in the fall, you heard a very long presentation about all of this work. It's really, really technically detailed, and it's really important work. So I wanted to give a quick update on that. Essentially, Washington County, like all other jurisdictions in Oregon, has required environmental significant natural resource protection regulations in our code. The county's regulations for unincorporated areas were adopted in the early 1980s. That was a while ago. So we're going through a process of updating them. That has to do with some state law changes that required clear and objective standards for housing development, which all of jurisdictions in Oregon will be dealing with, making sure their codes are in line with that. This is not unique to Washington County. But we were the one who's kind of out in front and facing some legal challenges to our existing regulatory requirements. So we've been going through this pretty extensive update process. If you haven't been involved and you haven't paid attention to this work, now is a really good time to start because we're moving into the code changes part. That's the piece I think many of you would be the most interested in. Project website is on the slide, and our principal planner for community planning, Teresa Cherniak, is in the back here. So if you have questions about this project, Teresa is the person to talk to. And then Michelle Miller, one of our senior planners, is the project manager for it. So as I said, we're working on our draft code concepts right now. So our regulations will apply to urban unincorporated areas right now. We'll have to do an update to our rural regulations at some point too. So for our draft code concepts, looking at the riparian habitat area, the regulations will be similar to our current requirements. We generally are subject to Clean Water Services requirements anyway for that. So I don't think that piece of it will be particularly new to anyone. But we will change upland wildlife habitat. And so the regulations there, we won't change the allowed uses in those areas. And there will be a focus on tree retention and replacement. And we're going to have a couple of different paths for how to meet those requirements. So again, this is something to pay attention to. So we are working on finalizing the code language right now. We are sharing it with our Board of Commissioners. We'll be talking to on Tuesday, actually. So if you're interested, you may want to watch that work session. We'll then be working more with our Planning Commission and the board. We are required to have these regulations adopted by, I think, October of this year was the rule that was set. And so we're really aiming for that target and hoping to have it done this year. So then the last thing I'm going to say from the county perspective, we have some open recruitments right now. So if you are looking for a job with the county or you know someone who is, this is what's open. We have an opening for our building services supervisor for our plan review team, and then opening on that team for a plans examiner, either one or two, depending on the qualifications of who we find. And then we have an engineering associate position open in Stacy's team. We will have 2 Inspector 2 positions coming up as of July 1st, and then possibly some other vacancies, just depending on what else happens. So please take a look at our open jobs. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Damon to hear from Clean Water Services. And I don't know if you had slides to pull up.
No slides,
Okay.
just a few updates this morning. Thanks, Erin, and thank you to the county for having us this morning. Few bits of news I wanted to update on. It's been a couple years since we've talked to this group, and there's been a lot of changes, both in just sort of our society with COVID and how we do business and what the job market's like. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about is our staffing and timelines. We've had a lot of changeover in our staff over the last few years, and we have a number of open positions right now. Our development services group has about 25 positions, and 5 of those are currently open. 2 of them are in our inspection group, so we're currently recruiting for an inspector as well as an inspection supervisor. We have another couple of positions, one a GIS supervisor, and also one of our technicians in our private water quality facility program that will be opening in the not too distant future. And then we've also had a recent opening that we'll be recruiting for soon that is a plan reviewer in our plan review group. And that opening was caused because we just got to promote somebody you might have heard of before, worked with a lot over the years in our plan review group, and that's Marvin Spearing is our new, he's here this afternoon, raise your hand. Marvin is our new plan review supervisor, so we're really excited to have him in that role. He's been at the district for over 20 years and has been doing plan review, so I think he'll bring a lot of value to our team, and we're excited to add a new plan reviewer to our team in the near future. We've added in the last couple of years, a couple new plan review tech positions, and that's allowed us to really decrease some of our review times, specifically around our pre-screens and environmental reviews, and some of our more basic stormwater management reviews. So if you're submitting pre-screens, you might have found that sometimes if you submit them in the morning, you actually get that response back same day. I think that has been the first time that's ever happened in our history, just in the last year or so. So that's really exciting to see. We're on our more complex reviews, our site development reviews for larger subdivisions and commercial industrial. We're still seeing pretty quick review time periods of 10 to 15 business days typically for a review turnaround on those. One other piece of news I wanted to share that's pretty exciting, or at least staff is excited about it, is that we're on the cusp of introducing our online CWS permits portal. We've been accepting electronic plan review really since the beginning of COVID. We kind of had to take a crash course in how to do that, but we're moving towards a formal portal that is going to be sort of that one-stop shop interface for all things CWS permits. The portal will do everything from allow you to submit and request meetings, to receive comments, ask questions on a particular project, have a project team be able to access and see the status of reviews, submit documents, and even pay for your permit fees online. We're going to be rolling this out over the next 6 to 9 months in phases. That first phase will bring some of the more basic things here in just the next couple months, being able to do things like pay for your permits online and request meetings. But by this winter, we expect to really be able to have all of our review types available. So clear up to site development reviews, be able to submit for those and track them. I think it'll make the administrative side of plan review and permitting more efficient, both for our applicants. It will also do that for staff. This portal is going to interface with our permitting software that we have. So it'll cut down on some of the data entry that we need to do and hopefully move things along that much faster. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Damon. We'll move on to Wilsonville. Dan, did you have slides?
I also did not have slides.
Nice. I won't give you the clicker then.
Yeah, you reversed the order on me.
I was saying
Thanks.
my maiden name is Wilson and my name is Wardell, and so I'm really used to being at the end of everything. So I thought we'd mix it up for these folks.
So great. Good to be here. Thanks for taking time to be here and thanks for the invite. So just for orientation, for those that don't know, most of Wilsonville is in Clackamas County, kind of. So I'm gonna focus most of my comments on the portion that's in Washington County, which is primarily industrial lands with some commercial and like one apartment complex and a prison. So that's kind of the part of Wilsonville that's in Washington County. But there's been a lot happening. Then I'll make a couple comments in general about the city, even though some of it applies to Clackamas County. Industrial development, on the north side, we have our Coffee Creek area. And that has been, we've seen some development there as well as some entitlements and kind of we experimented with the form-based code in that area and a unique approach to industrial entitlements. And we've had enough of those that we're able to go back and kind of see what worked and what didn't. So we just adopted a code package that refines that to better enable a more streamlined and focus on, those standards that we're waiving every single development. We identified what those were and adapted those. But building on that momentum, we're getting going on what we're calling our Wilsonville Industrial Land Readiness Project, which is 2 phases. The first phase is focused on what is called Basalt Creek, which is that area beneath the future Basalt Creek Parkway between Tualatin and Wilsonville. So really, that has a concept plan adopted, but does not have zoning adopted yet. So we're working on that, have zoning adopted. Goal is by the end of this year. But that project really has, then once we kind of look at that area, we're expanding the process citywide to really, in a number of things. First of all, look at what are industrial needs, what are the clusters, what is really kind of call it an economic opportunities analysis, but it doesn't meet all the state statute per se, since we're not required to. But a lot of really more forward looking than some of the traditional EOA analysis. And then looking at our zoning standards and other standards to see how those can best be adapted to serve industrial needs. And also part of that is while all of our infrastructure master plans include this area, it's updating costs for that infrastructure and really looking at financing plan, getting into the details of infrastructure financing in that area. So that's an exciting project. For me, it's exciting to be working on some industrial land rather than a lot of residential, which has been my life for the last few years. So I will follow up as a number of jurisdictions as CFAC applies. This area of Washington County served by TriMet, so it's not frequent transit, sorry. It's so our more frequent areas of transit are elsewhere in the city. So a lot of Wilsonville is actually already isn't allowed to have any parking minimums, but this area of Coffee Creek, this industrial area, still does have parking because there's not frequent transit. So we will be doing some updates to that, but ends up not likely needing to be extensive as other jurisdictions, since most of the cities are already covered by frequent transit requirements and administrative rules. Some other things about implementation. We did just adopt a new stormwater master plan, so we are keeping up on our infrastructure master plans. And with that, of course, comes the relook at SDCs. And so working at both parks and storm SDCs are coming up soon. We're at an interesting point in our housing history because Billabong, if you're familiar with it, which is 2,600 units at build out, is just finishing. I mean, everything's been entitled. The construction's finishing up after a couple of decades out there, which is exciting to see. And Frog Pond is moving forward. The part that's in the UGB, for those that are interested in things like middle housing and how middle housing land divisions and some of those mechanisms are working, that is actually being used out there a fair amount. Mainly to take larger, like 6,000 to 8,000 square foot lots to create smaller lots for still detached homes. At the same time, we've adopted a large area in the UGB for Frog Pond East and South, as we call it. That Master plan was adopted at the end of 2022, and we're just finishing up the implementing code, which has been a process because you have to think about it entirely differently than you have historically. But it's, at the same time, it's interesting how that different approach to code, you end up getting a lot of the same percentages of middle housing and housing variety as you did in like a Villebois where you used more traditional zoning approach. So it's been really interesting to see how adapting to like the different rules around middle housing from the state. While you have to take a different approach, you can still get to substantially the same place. So, but you'll see, and I think a lot of you that do residential development have seen that, you know, the zoning codes are starting to look a lot different with these changes in state law and different approaches. So that's definitely the case in Wilsonville as we look to these new areas. We've been doing online permitting for a couple of years now. That continues to be go well, I think, getting positive feedback from the development community, being able to be responsive. And we just appreciate the partnerships and look forward to continuing those partnerships. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan. So we'll move on to Mike. And Mike, I think, did have slides.
Dude.
Somebody give you
Copy
the
that.
clicker. Yep.
Well, good morning. Good to see you all. I'm Mike McCarthy, a city engineer in Tualatin. And a number of things we have going on. We are in the midst of a transportation system plan update. We're now in the phase where we're identifying some of our biggest transportation needs. Coming up real soon is our how do we address them and what do we do to make transportation better. Like the others, we're also working to implement the CFEC parking guidelines and some of the other aspects of that regulation. I'm probably going to skip a lot of slides to try to just hit things quickly because so much has already been said and will be said. And we have a number of, we have a lot of development going on, a lot of residential, particularly in the Basalt Creek area, down by Horizon Church or the southern part of Tualatin, right next to our border with Wilsonville. We also have a fair amount of light industrial development going on in the western part of Tualatin, down towards our border with Sherwood. The Lamb Research is growing and, you know, building more out there, also in kind of northwestern Tualatin. And we've got some interest going on in some more dense development up near the Bridgeport Village area. And a couple other big employers expanding in western Tualatin. We have about 40,000 employees in our city. And some more what's happening. Some folks are more familiar with some of that than others. We have a affordable housing development also going on along Boones Ferry Road in the southern part of Tualatin that's just gone vertical. So that's what you might be seeing there. And then we have our core opportunity reinvestment area that we've been doing a fair amount of planning work for. That's right around our downtown. And so here's the boundaries of the area. I-5 is the red line going through. The yellow part is where we're looking at focusing more of our development and some of the undeveloped properties that come in there. So that's an area that we're really focusing on and looking to see grow in the coming years. And we're also wrapping up the Tualatin Moving Forward program, which was a $20 million bond measure passed back in 2018. And with that, we've delivered 36 transportation projects all around the city. Everything from smaller crosswalks to like big Boones Ferry Road reconstruction project and some striping to help people get to the I-5 interchange more efficiently. We're also starting construction of a big parks bond. So a couple dozen more projects helping parks all around Tualatin and, you know, more amenities for some of your future residents or customers and tenants. And I think that covers what we have for Tualatin. So I'll pass it on.
Thanks, Mike. We'll move on to Susan with City of Tigard.
I was gonna say good afternoon, but I think I'm still on East Coast time. Good morning. My name's Susan Shanks. I'm a senior planner with the City of Tigard, and lots of things are going on in the city. Lots of things are going on in all our cities, it sounds like. I want to start with our permitting process because we have a couple people that have mentioned some improvements to their permitting process. I'm curious, Damon, to know which program you're using, because I know Wilsonville is using Tyler for their online permitting, and that's what the city of Tigard is moving to. So we expect to be online with a new system at the beginning, like January of 2025. And we'll just will be very similar to what these two gentlemen described over here. That'll be a lot easier to pull permits, to check the status of projects, both for land use and for building permits and engineering permits. So to submit applications, to do all that kind of great stuff. So we're working hard at improving what we currently have, so that'll be a lot easier for community members, developers to submit online. So we hope you all take advantage of that. So we're doing that. And then in terms of code projects, we are just about to adopt, council is going to be holding a public hearing to consider adopting a whole package of code amendments. One is specific to our employment lands, so all our industrial and commercial lands. We're actually kind of simplifying all of our zones. We had a lot of commercial zones, but even though we had a lot of zones, we maybe had like one parcel zoned like commercial professional, or one lot zoned, commercial neighborhood. So we are consolidating our zones, but we're also simplifying, and we're refining all of the uses that are allowed in the various zones. So we're hoping, essentially it's a modernization process, because we're hoping to make it a lot cleaner and clearer for different types of uses to come into different zones, and for it to be more obvious, because a lot of our code was, even 10, 20 years ago, just business practices are changing and how people are doing business. And so our use classifications were not keeping up. And I always use the example that we had a doggy daycare adoption who also wanted to do a brew pub business, and we didn't even know what to do with that. So we're doing, anyway, this full package to make that a lot easier and more modern for all the crazy businesses that are going to do things in our city, which is great. And we're also updating all of our zoning in the Washington Square Regional Center District for the portion that's inside Tigard. As you may know, Washington Square is a very large regional center. It's actually in unincorporated Washington County. It's also in the city of Beaverton, as well as in the city of Tigard. And those two packages for updating the zoning in Washington Square, as well as updating our employment lands zoning, will go to council on, I think it's the 23rd of this month. So if you're interested, join the hearing online or in person. With regard to code amendments as well, we're just in the process of doing an update to our downtown code. We're taking some of the lessons we've learned when we did our Tiger Triangle code amendments, where we really simplified the requirements for getting entitlements in the Tiger Triangle. That's a town center designation under Metro. And that process, in addition to some other things we did, like adopting a VHDZ, so Vertical Housing Development Zone, for those of you who don't know that fun acronym. In addition to adopting that and a TIF district in the Tiger Triangle and simplifying our code, we've had a lot of vertical and mixed use development going on there. And it's still happening, although I do understand the interest rates are creating some snags for some projects that are trying to get off the ground. But we do have another affordable housing project that will be coming into that area soon. We already have 2 that have been built in the last couple of years. So we hope the interest rates will be kind and allow some other development to get back up on their feet and going. But a lot of stuff happening in the Tiger Triangle. And then with regard to urban growth boundary expansions, you may or may not know that the Tigard expanded its western boundary adjacent to River Terrace, which was the city's first urban growth boundary expansion. That happened in like all the development started happening there in 2015 in River Terrace, what we call 1.0, but now we're starting the community planning for River Terrace 2.0. And that kickoff is imminent. We have all the funding, we're doing all the contracting, we've got consultants in place, and so we're just ready to get that going. So if you're interested in that, Skylar Warren, he's another senior planner with the city of Tigard. I encourage you to contact him because that'll open up another huge area, about 500 acres west of the city. River Terrace 1.0 is actually, it's only maybe got 50 acres out of the 500 that are not entitled for development. We're way ahead of schedule for that 20-year plan. We're almost completely built out. So things have happened fast. And we hope that the same will happen with River Terrace 2.0, but time will tell. And lastly, we're hoping to hear from the county, the Board of County Commissioners sooner than later, whether or not we're going to get MSTIP funding for Greenberg Road through Washington Square. So fingers crossed. If anybody has any. So I think that's it for Tigard. Thank you.
And those decisions will be happening soon. So we'll go to Joy next. I think Joy might need the clicker. You have slides, right?
Yes, I do. Good morning, everyone. It is really great to see a lot of familiar places, and thank you for inviting Sherwood to this table. Similar to everyone else, we are looking at electronic permitting submittals as far as a program. We're implementing CFLEC regulations and hope to adopt those fairly soon. And we'll be discussing UBG expansion within my slides. So Joy Chang, City of Sherwood Interim Planning Manager. Again, I'm gonna just talk briefly, since my time is really short, like everyone else, in 3 different parts. Tonkin Employment Area, Brookman area, and also Sherwood West. So the Tonkin Employment Area was, it's 300 acres and there's lots of, it's pretty much our industrial area, and the preferred industry in this is clean technology and advanced manufacturing and outdoor gear and activity wear. And development is booming. 2 examples are the Sherwood Commerce Center, 3 industrial buildings that just received preliminary, or no, they have received preliminary approval and are in the process of finishing, trying to get final occupancy. The next is Rock Creek Industrial, and that just received Planning Commission approval March 12th. And this is a 413,250 square foot warehousing and industrial land. So things are definitely developing in this area. So if there is interest in industrial land and employment, this is the targeted area. In regards to residential, we definitely have the Brookman area where predominantly is all of our subdivision, with the exception of some commercial aspects in the green area there. It hasn't been annexed yet into the city, but for future, that's where more commercial development could occur. As of now, there's about 273 single-family homes that have been built or obtain approval for this development. I'm going to take some time here. The Sherwood West concept plan is 1,291 acres. It's definitely has diverse land uses, which is very unique through our concept planning. We're actually purposely requiring the concept allows for middle housing zoning that includes cottage clusters, as far as cottage cluster zoning, and then middle housing zoning, so that we are purposely making sure that those are what is going to be used within those areas. There is also to the north mixed employment use, so another opportunity for industrial. And the goal is to have office, light industrial, and flex space use. And there's an estimate of 4,500 jobs that could be created through that area. And finally, the hospitality zone to the south, just because Sherwood is known to be as the gateway to wine country. And it's going to serve as a destination. And the ideal uses for that is lodging, tasting rooms, restaurants, event space, small retail shops. So I believe Sherwood is the only city that has requested for a UGB as expansion this year. We formally did submit our application a couple of weeks ago, meeting our requirement. And we did ask for the entirety of the plan, so, which will be helpful in regards to concept planning or comprehensive planning towards the end. We expect Metro to provide us a decision coming this fall or early winter. And then the next steps would be comprehensive planning, annexations, and ultimately development. I'd say if you're really near infrastructure now, probably 5 years as far as breaking ground, just because the comprehensive planning process takes about 1.5 to 3 years. Oh boy, I am in good time here. So other projects that are not development related, but I wanted to highlight it because it improves Sherwood's livability and turning future development opportunities in turn. So the first is the pedestrian bridge crossing Highway 99. It's Sherwood's building a better, safer way for people biking and walking to cross Highway 99. So that is one aspect that we just recently broke ground. And I believe the goal is to have this completed sometime next year. And then the other fun place is located in Old Town, Robin Hood Festival. It was completed in June of last year, and it's already becoming a community meeting spot. Here's my information and some links if you have other questions.
Thanks, Joy. We'll move on to Steve with North Plains.
Good morning, everyone. Steve Miller, Planning Manager at the City of North Plains. Good to see everybody, and thank you, Washington County, for having us. I did have some slides, but I wasn't able to get them to Aaron in time, so there weren't any fancy pictures anyhow. It's just all words, so I'll just share the words with you that are on my slides. But a quick update kind of on some of the development activities that are happening right now in North Plains. As many of you are familiar with, we have the Lennar Bryn Hill subdivision going on at the north part of the city, and that is still moving along. They're breaking ground on the 5th and final phase. They're getting the public infrastructure put in, and probably will be building houses out in that final phase soon. But right now they're pretty much building in phases 2, 3, and 4. They've got a few parks already completed, and so it is just moving right along. We're pretty happy with what's happening out there. Another one that's going to be coming online soon is we recently approved a 200,000 square foot warehouse building, and we expect the ground on that to be broken here this springtime. And they have found a tenant for that building, so that's exciting. I don't believe that's public information right now, so I'll hold that back. But it is exciting to know that it's not a spec building anymore. There actually is a tenant ready to move in that when it's done. So looking forward to having that building off the ground. And then we got a new bar and restaurant open in North Plains called Melly's. We were able to go there last night for a little soft opening, and encourage anybody who's in North Plains to stop by and check it out. It's a nice little restaurant and bar. But I think the big news that everybody is looking for from North Plains is what's going on with your UGB expansion. It's been very dynamic. I've been planning in the state of Oregon for a long time, and this is something I've never seen before. And so I'll just kind of go over a little bit of where things are at right now. In September of 2023, the City Council adopted an ordinance for the new UGB expansion. And we proceeded on in that process over to the county. And on October 18th of 23, we had our first planning commission meeting. It was a very interesting meeting. It was well attended and lasted for about 4.5 hours. So that was longer than I thought it would go, but we covered a lot of ground. We came back on October 20th on October 20th, the opposition folks in North Plains filed a referendum to have the ordinance that the council adopted go to the voters of North Plains. So that happened, and that was going to be placed on the May 21st ballot. On November 23rd, Washington County Board decided to postpone consideration of our UGB expansion until after that election. And we were hoping, though, that we might be able to get a planning commission recommendation from the county before then. But the county also decided to, the planning commission decided to hold off on making any recommendations until after the May vote. In between all of that, we had a legislative session recently. And as part of that legislative session, they approved House Bill 4026A, which was very unique. Part of that legislation had to do with saying that you can't file a referendum on a UGB expansion because that type of process is administrative, not legislative. So they actually said, we're going to put this legislation in and it's going to be retroactive back to January 1st of 2023. And so there will be no referendums in North Plains. And that got challenged. That was taken over here to Washington County to a judge here in Washington County who decided to put a stay on that and allow the vote to go forward, even though it may not count. So that has put us in a very unique situation where the voters are going to be super confused on what's going on. We're still going to have this vote in May. The actual count might not even come out. It might not even be made record of how that vote went. And so trying to unravel some of this is going to be quite a challenge for us. I hope that judge comes forward and explains himself when this all comes out as to why maybe we had this go forward when it wouldn't count in the first place. But that's where we're at right now, is waiting for May 21st to come and have that election. And again, it's uncharted waters. It's never happened to anybody before. So you're welcome. You won't have that problem. But we are hopeful to get our concept planning going. We've got a grant from ODOT to do that work. They've held that money back because of the referendum. So we've been patiently waiting to get that work started. When all the House bill went down and it looked like things were going to move out in our favor, that money started to come back available to us to go ahead and kick that off. Then when the judge decided to allow the vote to go forward, it kind of got pulled back a little bit, on us. And so it's been very, very challenging. But that is really where we're at in this process, is to move through the county process, hopefully get a recommendation of approval for our UGB expansion, get that over to the state. And while all that's happening, get our concept planning moving forward. So that's really where we're at right now in our process. My time's up, but I'll just be real quick and let you know that another thing that we're starting on out in North Plains that other cities have done is trying to get a Ready Build ADU program up and running. We have a little bit of a unique challenge compared to other jurisdictions in that we're so small, we don't have a building department to kind of help us with that. So we rely on Washington County for that. They've been a good partner in trying to figure out how to do this, but these plans are lacking some critical engineering components, structural engineering, roof engineering, things of that nature. So they didn't feel comfortable being able to give it like a master approval for us. But the plans are at about 70%. We're using the City of Eugene plans that they've been using. And so it will still be a plan that we can share with our residents that's going to reduce some of the costs of being able to build an ADU. They would just need to find a structural engineer to just engineer a few components for them, and then they can bring that into the county and get a building permit for an ADU. And we're also going to try and partner with some of the architects and designers in the area to see if they can bring forward some ADU plans at a reduced cost, so we can create a little library for the residents there of North Plains to have some ADU options. So thank you, and sorry I went a little long.
Thanks, Steve. And if you're wondering why Steve's urban growth boundary expansion process sounds different than what you heard from Tigard and Sherwood, cities in Metro follow one set of rules. Cities outside Metro follow a completely different set of rules. So North Plains and Banks have a different rule book that they're following here. So with that, we'll move on to King City.
Thank you, Aaron.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for the invite. It's exciting for King City to get out here and kind of tell everyone what we're doing. Where am I pointing
I think
this?
we have King City slides.
I do have slides. Yep. There we go. All right, so I wanted to start out just kind of giving a brief background on the projects that King City's been going on and some of our history within the last 6 years since the previous urban growth boundary expansion. So in 2018, King City was granted a urban growth boundary expansion of about 528 acres to the west of what King City is. Since then, there's been years of planning to do comp plan amendments to figure out exactly what the vision is for this expansion. Basically, it goes from Roy Rogers to 137th, and then between Tualatin and Beef Bend. So when at full build out, this is going to essentially double the size of King City. So it's pretty major. since then, we've decided, we've come up with this regulating plan that coincides with our transportation system plan and what has ultimately been deemed Kingston Terrace Master Plan. So this urban growth boundary is going to be known as Kingston Terrace. In 2023, last year, both of these plans were adopted through ordinance by the city council. So after 5 years of planning, we're finally able to start moving forward with actually developing this area. The vision for this is kind of, we're really trying to focus on sustainability, walkability, forward thinking, looking to the future and making this a good community identity for King City. So we're developing all sorts of interconnected trail systems. These are all integrated within the transportation system plan, lots of parks. Ultimately, this is what we've come up with for the Kingston Terrace. So there's 4 King City land use zones that are brand new. We're looking at the Town Center neighborhood, Beef Bend neighborhood, Central neighborhood, and the Rural Character neighborhood. Along with those have been some code amendments. So 16114 is our form-based zone code for these zones. And then 16192 is the annexation process, which has been recently adopted also in 2023 to really help us get a good foothold for how we're going to facilitate development into this urban growth boundary moving forward. This is just kind of a brief overview of what's going to be defined in these zones. So if you're looking at Town Center, which is going to be over there on the west in purple, that's our town center. So that'll be mostly dense. It's going to be a lot of mixed use. The Beef Bend neighborhood up at the top in the blue, that's also mixed use and the second most dense. The central neighborhood in the yellow right there is mostly residential. And then there's going to be the rural character neighborhood, which is in that tan color, which is a rural character neighborhood right now in the urban growth boundary. And so to mitigate impact on that region, we're trying to integrate it and keep it more or less the same as it is now. Whereas the other 3 zones are kind of like agricultural zones. So those lots are a lot bigger. And then there's just some density requirements. So as I said, you can see that the Town Center neighborhood, then Beef Bend and so on is going to be mostly dense to least dense. And all those are online. Initially, in January of this year, King City has just annexed these properties as our first annexation in our urban growth boundary. So these are about 215 acres, total of 8 lots. And so this is exciting because one, like I mentioned, these are large lots. So it was not easy, but it was a good piece of property to get annexed into the city. And just this by itself increased the city land by about 50%. And what we're turning that into is now the King City Town Center. So those lots over there on the far west is going to be ideally turned into this. So this has been a development proposal that we have received just last month. It's about close to 1,200 units, 800 lots. It will include a new municipal site, about 33,000 square feet of retail space, parks, a bunch of amenities. So it's really going to be ideally the new King City identity moving forward. This town center is going to be seen in a public hearing in a couple weeks in front of the Planning Commission. So we'll see how that goes. But we're moving forward with this thing, and this is kind of where we're at. Additionally to that, some other smaller side projects that we're working on. We have the West Side Trail segment, identified as segment 1 by Metro back in 2014. That, if you look on the right there, spans the Tualatin to Beef Bend. A couple of amenities that we're looking at are dog parks, neighborhood gardens, pickleball courts, BMX courts. Eventually, it'll have a pedestrian bridge. Ideally, that'll cross the Tualatin. This is in the very early concept stages right now. We're doing some public outreach initiatives later next month. So that's some exciting stuff that we're working on just to really try to build out this urban growth boundary in a way that is going to be good and something that people will actually want to live in. Right now, besides those lots that we just annexed, we're looking at about 100 more properties in that area. Some are more amenable to development than others. This is just a map of an LWI that is being performed by the city at the moment. to help facilitate development and to help streamline and make it easier for folks to annex. And so we're working with DEA right now to get this LWI taken care of. And then just to wrap it all up, this is, what King City's doing. So we're just looking forward to having some fairly ambitious planning in the next 20 years. And we're trying to develop this flexible zoning to make it to help the developers come in and develop, but also, the way that the neighborhoods are organized, we want to make it a good and nice livable space with great amenities for everyone involved. So that's kind of the update for King City.
Thanks, Max. We'll move on to Leslie with City of Hillsborough.
Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Leslie Hamilton with the City of Hillsborough. Where am I pointing this thing?
I think it's over there.
You can point
Over
generally
there?
in the back of the room.
Over there?
It's like Mark's got your slides coming up.
Okay, over there. All right, well, I guess I skipped ahead. Okay, here we go. The big news, if you haven't been over to the 4th floor in the City of Hillsborough, we have a new permit center. This has been a process that's been in the works for about 2 years. And on the plus side, COVID helped us along because we are all very flexible and can work remotely, as half the floor has been shut down for about 8 months. And now the other half is going underway. So if you can stop by, on the 4th floor, take a look. It smells like new car, and it'll probably smell like that for a while. So we've got a lot of collab spaces. We're really trying to, techno-eyes the industry and the experience as you come in to get a permit. And ultimately, planning, building, fire, economic development will all be on one floor when this wraps up with phase 2. So really a one-stop shop. Couple work plan updates. This is some of the big projects we're working on. Calle Diaz up on 10th. We finished the housing needs analysis last year. We're moving into the housing production strategy. And of course, what everyone's working on, the CFEC standards and the other mandates coming down from the state. This is just a kind of a look back on our permit activity. We've been pretty steady for the past 2 years. You can see in that line that Intel has a big footprint with us. We just permitted D1X Mod 4 in the fall of 2023. So that's starting construction in 2024. And yeah, things are keeping steady. And another slide showing pretty much the same thing. We've been keeping busy. Our permits for completed plan reviews and inspections are about steady from 2022 to 2023. So all good signs. A couple of development projects coming up. Reed's Crossing in South Hillsborough. The whole South Hillsborough area ultimately will have about 8,000 new homes and dwellings. There's also a town center and a village center. So on the north side of the area, right south of TV Highway, is the town center. There's about 6 big development sites that are identified for the town center. 5 of them are either up and running or are under construction. Reed's Crossing Town Center, this is the north mixed use, so mostly residential, but with some retail. In that same corner is townhouse development, senior living, and the Providence Wellness Center. There's a Graymore project in construction right now, kind of right to the east of this. So the town center is coming along nicely. Butternut Creek, this is also in South Hillsborough. It's the village center, so a little less intense as far as the commercial uses and sites. There's a 4-block area for the village center. One of the blocks has been permitted, and that's undergoing vertical construction right now. I think pickleball courts are part of that too, so we're part of the trend. Nueva Esperanza is a new affordable housing development. They just got their final C of O earlier this year, 150 units. The interesting thing about Nueva Esperanza, this is out on the 53rd Avenue area near the community center, near light rail, and now affordable housing. It includes a couple 4-bedroom units. So really family-sized units in addition to 1, 2, and 3 bedroom. And that, again, that got its C of O. Last in, I think last October or November, Dolores Affordable Housing Project out on Walker got its approval. I believe it's under construction. This is 67 affordable housing units, all at 60% AMI or more. The Witch Hazel Village South. So this is one of our newer areas of town. We also have a Witch Hazel Village, but this is Witch Hazel Village South. The plan was adopted in 2022. The village plan was adopted in 2022, and then the code amendments became effective in late 2023. So we're looking at annexation agreements to start the process for the development out in this is really the southwest corner of the city. And I noted before we of course went through our housing needs analysis in 2023 that was adopted. We're now into the production part of that, the housing production. I think most cities are doing the same thing. Oh, I didn't realize there was a video. Here we go. We're going to see a video.
I don't think we'll have time for the whole video.
No video.
actually.
Okay.
Unless it's 6
It was
seconds long.
embedded in there. And last, I don't know if you heard about this CHIPS Act, but a big investment in the area, and Hillsborough has committed 36 billion to their facilities here in Hillsborough. So big footprint. And that's Hillsborough's update.
Thank you. Move on to Brian with Forest Grove.
Good morning, everybody. Brian Pohl, Community Development Director for the City of Forest Grove. And I'm just going to admit to you up front that this presentation is totally recycled from my presentation to council for the update this year. But it has some overlapping information that I think you'll be interested in. So Forest Grove, we're staying busy. We obviously we're very small. We're a small community. We have 2 planners, a building staff of 4. So these are big numbers for us. We reviewed 4 subdivisions this year. That number of new lots added is approaching 500 now, with including this spring. 38 land use applications, several planning commission meetings. We've had 64 new starts in 2023, done a lot of inspections, obviously, and a lot of permit revenue. One of our big things, like the city of Hillsborough, we were aiming to open a one-stop permit shop. You know, we kind of, I think probably like a lot of jurisdictions have had some sort of issues in the past with, you know, planning things, kind of going over to engineering and then coming back to planning, and a lot of sort of mixed wires, mixed signals and things like that. We were physically separated for years and years and years. And so this was kind of the brainchild of the current city manager, myself, and public works director to co-locate our engineering staff and planning, economic development. And it's that the part you see on the right is the new development services annex. It's a one-stop permit shop. You can come and get questions, schedule all your inspections for engineering, planning, public works, all that sort of stuff. And so we're really proud of this. And for a city the size of Forest Grove, this is a big deal. We're also working, and this is not necessarily development related, but it could be in the future. We're working on a quality of life plan or a visioning process, which is we just selected the consultant for. Basically, you know, for years and years and years, our council has kind of operated in this fashion of the last person who coordinates them at the grocery store is kind of who gets on the, you know, objectives for the next year. And so we're working for an overall community sort of vision behind the city of Forest Grove that would actually incorporate a lot of sort of public outreach and everything, and would probably include some construction projects potentially. We've been growing like crazy, about 3 to 4% per year. You see our numbers there from 2021 to 23. And so we're growing up. We hit that magic 25,000 threshold back in, I think, 2019. We have been working with a URA owned property. If you've been through Forest Grove, you've probably seen the new 3-story Jesse Quinn building. And then to the west of there, you've seen kind of a gravel open lot. That RFP was issued in February. The proposals are due today, as a matter of fact. Our council would like to see a grocery store, boutique hotel, something like that. But it was an open RFP to kind of be whatever somebody would propose. We've had a little bit of interest in it. We had a grocery store developer who was committed there about 2 years ago. And then when interest rates started to rise, that started to make the project not able to pencil. And so That's been kind of frustrating, but also exciting at the opportunity that could happen there. We are starting our EOA as well. You know, we're seeing a lot of things in Forest Grove. You know, there's the Trans-Pacific cables that come through Forest Grove, and so we're seeing the data center interest. In fact, we just had a new data center proposed the other day. I came in last week for 500,000 square feet. And that's over on 47 in Poplar, just north of the Clean Water Services building up there. That just got submitted and deemed complete, and we'll be going through the planning commission process soon. Actually, I'm sorry, it's administrative review. We're seeing a lot of change in development pressures on due to that cable. Doing a lot, looking also at the changes in retail and commercial demand. You know, I think we all know that sort of the retail demand is changing a lot in the post-COVID world, as well as the demand for office space. And so our last EOA was in 2019. And so we are right on track to do our 5-year update for it. Currently underway, and we're looking forward to seeing what that yields. Couple little things I got in my notes here as everybody else talked, and I thought, oh, I should have included that. One thing that'll be interesting to this room, we are bringing back our master permit program. So if you are building the same house that you've already built once and we have planned toward that we've approved, we will now issue a permit for that same house plan elsewhere in the subdivision for half price. That was pretty popular before, but that was something that we it's an unenviable position or an enviable position to try to be getting our permit revenues down a little bit. They've been kind of going crazy over the years, and we haven't been spending that money as fast as we've been making it. So rather than sort of looking at spending a lot of money, we're looking at how to kind of take in less money. And that master permit program was a big part of that. Our urban growth area to the west that was brought into in the grand bargain, we're working on a stormwater master plan through there. There's a lot of infrastructure challenges up on the hill, above certain elevations especially. So we're working on that right now. And one last project, we have JT Smith approved for a 360 unit multifamily and retail on 47 and Sunset. And that's all.
Thank you. We'll go to Barbara with City of Cornelius.
Good afternoon, or I guess it is still morning. It feels like afternoon. Thank you to Washington County again for allowing us to come. I do not have slides. I'm Barbara Fryer. I'm the Community Development Director at the City of Cornelius. And basically, we are working on our economic opportunities analysis as well. It is before the Planning Commission, the end of the month, actually. And contrary to other cities, we have about less than 5 acres within our urban growth boundary of industrially zoned land. One of those projects is committed to a different, for expansion of a company that's in the city right now. And the other one may become a new substation. So we're really limited in our industrial land. There is a sizable parcel that is owned by Metro for potentially a waste transfer station. We would really like to exert some pressure and hopefully have them sell that land and develop it for industrial purposes. We are running out of housing land as well. Our approximately 300 acre parcel that came in with the grand bargain, that was the Laurel Woods development, is almost done. Phase 10 and 11 of 11 phases. The infrastructure, I think, will be approved today. And they can start building the houses on those 2 phases shortly. Phase 9 only has about 10 homes left to be built. And then 10 and 11 will be the last 2 phases. There is a sizable parcel, 40 acres north of Laurel Woods. It's owned by Hillsborough School District. And so that's another opportunity, perhaps, if Hillsborough doesn't need it for, Hillsborough School District doesn't need it for school development. Other than that, we're seeing some small middle housing developments converting parcels into 4-unit developments. And then we have one large 346 unit apartment complex, large for Cornelius that has been plagued by state agencies. And hopefully it will be approved through the state soon for development, and we can see that start breaking ground. Our 113 unit apartment complex that is an affordable housing complex should get certificates of occupancy I think within this week or next week. And the other big project that's going on in Cornelius is North 19th Avenue is getting a new roundabout right at the intersection of Davis and 19th, which is where the Plaza Los Amigos affordable housing development is located. And we hope to have that finished by the end of June, I believe. So 19th will be closed at some point in the near future for that construction. We have 4 or 5 projects that are entitled but have not yet begun construction due to financing issues, and we're hopeful that they'll resolve those issues and start constructing. We also went through, or in the process of going through our visioning process this summer. We expect to have that approved at council late summer. And we are in the midst of an anti-gentrification, anti-displacement study with Eco Northwest and Unite Oregon, and they're working to see if there are changes that we could institute in our town center to assist with existing more affordable units being retained while still stimulating additional development in the area. So what are kind of some of the strategies that we should be employing? The other thing that we did is we recently went out for an RFP for a comprehensive plan update. Our comprehensive plan has not been completely updated since the early 80s when it was originally adopted. And so we're looking to try to create a cohesive document that is more up to date with this century. And that's just about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Lee with Beaverton.
Hi, Lee Crabtree, Assistant Director of Community Development in the City of Beaverton. I've got slides, so I'm just gonna wait here. I will tell you, I cribbed off of another presentation of City Council priorities work plan, and I'm just going to use that as a backdrop to give you an idea of how we're aligning our work at the city and why you might see things on our work plan versus other things that you might see. So the City Council adopted their strategic goals and priorities. So we're basically, as an organization, focusing ourselves on the 4 main blocks of diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging, community and organization well-being, financial recovery, and natural resources. Within this section, we're really working with a nonprofit incubator in CDD to get more opportunities for businesses to grow from a nascent stage of like, we've got this idea to we can actually help people move along. So that's part of the Oregon Startup Center, which we've been doing at the city for over 20 years. Another set of work that we are doing in community development was related to transportation initiatives. So the transportation system plan is getting kicked off. We have not had an update since 2016, and a lot of our planning since that time has really changed what people expect to see, but our transportation system plan doesn't reflect what the expectations of today are. So we really need to get that up to date. What will have an impact on that is some of the work going on the loop. So that little circle there, the circle in the circle there is a transportation idea to create more of a complete straight loop in our downtown. So those type of activities that we have going on will impact our transportation system plan. And then continuing to do community traffic safety improvements with our traffic team. What most people are interested in from a residential development standpoint is the status of our Cooper Mountain Community Plan. It should go to city council for final adoption at the end of, by the end of the year. Right now, the biggest push is to make sure we have our infrastructure funding all packaged up and understand what our infrastructure needs are to support development, what that phasing might look like. Because it is what sometimes we joke about is Middle Earth. It's between the top of the mountain and South Cooper Mountain. And there's a lot of natural resources in there. So we have to really work to figure out like how development can occur and what way. So that will actually impact fees as well. There might be some different funding strategies coming out of that. So keep an eye on that. That's active now. We are also working and planning on community friendly and equitable communities, housing plan implementation and middle housing implementation, as well as HB 2306 implementation for early permitting of housing prior to plat. We've had some interesting realizations about that on active projects. So really applying what we can to understand what other jurisdictions are doing and then that works in Beaverton. We also have tree policies. So the Cooper Mountain Community Plan has a new tree code. As Barbara well knows, we've been working on trees in the city of Beaverton for a very long time. And so we haven't really had a new approach to that. So the Cooper Mountain Plan will give us a different idea of how to do that and see if we want to apply that citywide. And then the citywide tree canopy review will kick off this fall. In other news, the Beaverton Urban Redevelopment Agency is busy with their 5-year action plan update that goes forward to Bureau the 4th Tuesday of the month for adoption. Really trying to make sure that we're focusing the next 5 years on things that will make an impact to open up properties for redevelopment. Big part of TIF and urban redevelopment is that we take the burden off of properties nearby, right? So there's less burden on somebody to come in and redevelop our downtown properties. Part of that will also be working on our stormwater master plan and sub-basin strategy. So working with Clean Water Services and other partners to see what we can do there. We have a portfolio redevelopment strategy that was adopted. 2 of the projects that are going forward right now are Lombard West, so near the Beaverton Transit Center, and then Broadway East, which is on Broadway across from the new Moderna. It's Madura, but it's on Broadway. We've got over 300 dwelling units coming in there with some commercial. And so across the street, we have this corner that we own and just trying to get those RFPs out on the street. So Lombard West will be residential, part affordable housing and part market rate, maybe some commercial. Give you some idea of how busy we are. Planning is entitling about $1,000 a year for the last 4 to 5 years. So there's units coming in or at least available to be built. We've had a lot of redevelopment and it's mostly mixed use, a lot of residential, but there's always some sort of commercial component to it. And we have a lot of tenant improvements in our industrial because we don't have a lot of new industrial land. So a lot of what we do is like reimagine what we've got. Permitting for site development, they're about 75% of last year. That just means that we did a lot previously and there's just a lot being built right now and a lot being inspected. And then our building permits, we're at 2 times the output of normal for that. So it's putting a lot of pressure on our staff to get those out, and inspections thereby are also busy. South Cooper Mountain keeps us very busy. And like, I think just the idea that Damon started out with, staffing wise, we're just always looking for staff. So look for us for postings. You don't have, oh, you didn't. You didn't.
Thanks, Lee. And now Jolynn with City of Banks.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jolynn Becker. I'm the city manager for Banks. Last time we had any development was in the early 1990s. At that point, it was a 300 home and those homes basically tripled the population. Well, now we're looking at about doubling or tripling even more. But so I'm going to give you history. In 2011, city expanded the UGB area. And around that time, we found that we had a problem with our water, where we were losing water, because we provide our own water service or water service we provide to the city. At that point, the council made a water moratorium, so it stopped any development after our expansion. So during that time, we started while we were getting ready to fix our infrastructure, we looked at a study for water sources. We updated our planning and zoning files. We updated our master plans for transportation, parks, and water, so that we were ready for when development was able to come into the city. That was lifted about 2 years ago. So we've had 2 developments looking at coming into the city. And right now we've got 2 applications that are, one application has been submitted. And the second one is going to be, is potentially supposed to be submitted in the first part of May. So basically on the west side of the city, we have it's gonna be called West Side View. Each developer has to bring their own water source into the city to combine with our current system. So the west side is going to, with our DA, our developer agreement, they're gonna give us 1 acre for a future water facility, plus some water rights to one of the creeks there. So they had applied 2 weeks ago, so it's in the review process. They're bringing in about 145 homes. The next development is on our east side, which is where Quail Valley, I don't know if anybody's heard, Quail Valley is selling to a developer, so the golf course is going to go away. And in this process, it was community facilities, it was green space for the city. One of the things the city always thought was going to be a golf course, but the property owners decided, based on business reasons, that they were going to sell to a developer. So one of the things that we wanted to make ensure that we had some green space available. So they're going to, the developer we've been talking with is going to provide a 20-acre park that will have turf fields, a nice neighborhood park, and some parking. And so basically, with the east side, their last step that they have to do with provide is a neighborhood park, where that is scheduled for tonight. So I'm expecting an application. When that application comes in, it'll bring in, it'll have housing for 955 homes. So, and these are over the next 10 years, we're hoping, because this is a lot of build out for the little city. And in the development agreement with the east side, they are providing about $60 million of infrastructure that will be offset against their SDC fees. And in those in those infrastructure projects, they're looking at a roundabout at Arch Road and Highway 6. They're looking at a realignment on Banks Road. They're looking at building at that 20-acre park, but also creating a bridge over the railroad tracks to, it's a bike and pedestrian bridge. And all those projects are supposed to be done within the first 3 years of them breaking ground. I think that was it. That's pretty much it for our small city.
The golf course.
Yeah, the golf course is going away.
Thank you all for being here today and sharing this. I know when I'm out and about in the county, I'm always amazed at the wonderful things happening in all of the jurisdictions. And of course, Clean Water Services doing a great job with stormwater too. And if you don't know this, it's working correct. We try to do this format for the development forum every couple of years, I think. So really appreciate you being here today. And thank you, of course, to the audience and all that you being here. Please help yourself, choose some snacks and coffee before you leave. And I do need to announce that the next one is Thursday, October 10th. So please mark your calendar.
Oh,